Welcome back to Positive Connections Radio and HALT and Call for Backup. I got my buddy here, Jim McLintock. Jim, how's it going today?
Hey, I'm good, Mike. It is a beautiful day in our neighborhood. How's it going on your side of the planet?
Not bad at all. Hey, today we're going to talk about the 12 steps of recovery. And we're going to talk about the 12 steps of recovery as it relates to secular recovery. So we took out all the stuff in there that talks about any kind of religion, spirituality, and it makes it a little bit easier to understand. Anybody can work these steps, and it's suggested to work them with someone that you trust, someone that is a mentor to you, maybe someone that has already gone through the steps, but it's a good design for life.
You know, it's interesting, Mike. So many people in recovery are trying to find their way back to healthy living, healthy choices, healthy lifestyles, healthy coping skills. And sometimes there's a struggle for clients to actually begin a 12-step program. Sometimes it's confusion about it. Sometimes it's like you were talking about, they don't like the religiosity that has been connected to it over the years. I think it started in the 1930s, as I recall, right during the Great Depression, in that time frame was when Alcoholics Anonymous started up. And one of the things that I like to help people with is getting a solid understanding of what the 12 steps are, to not be afraid of them, because you've heard me say it on these shows before. The 12 steps have wisdom for everybody. You don't have to be in recovery to get a solid understanding of how to take care of yourself, how to make healthy choices for yourself, how to process things. So, and Mike, I've always been, and I mean this, I've always been mesmerized when you start talking about the 12 steps, when you start talking about the No Matter What Club and your journey, how you've helped others, where you find clients dragging their feet. So why don't you take it from here, Mike? Why don't you dive in and just let it rip?
Why do you think that people don't know what the 12 steps are? And what do you think, Jim? It's like not investigating. Like, a lot of us don't want to see what these steps are all about. And if I ask a crowded room of people that are in recovery, if they've ever read the 12 steps, looked at them, were ever interested in knowing what they were, once you find out what they are, you'll probably agree that it's something attainable. And it's something that's very attractive to have for your life, and these tools that they have in these things. And they're 12 steps. And the first one is, let's go by the original one. So the original, we admitted that we're powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. And when a lot of people see, we admit that we're powerless. For first responders, that's a tough one. I'm not going to admit that I'm powerless over something. I'm not powerless over. That's a weakness. I mean, what will everybody say when they know that I'm powerless over something? And, my life's not unmanageable, is it? Okay, well, let's look at the consequences of my drinking. Let's look at the consequences of whatever I'm doing. And we can just take away that alcohol. And matter of fact, we can even take away powerless. This is a rewrite of it. Instead of saying we admitted we're powerless over alcohol or anything else you want to put in there, that our lives have become unmanageable. We have to admit that, right? We have to admit that we have a problem. This is a rewrite. Secular version. Number one, we admitted we had a problem and that our lives have become unmanageable. Just admitting that we have a problem. I got a problem. What am I going to do with it? Right? I don't know what to do with it, but I do have a problem. And remember the stages of change. The stages of change, Jim, are, and you know it as good as anybody else, and anybody working in therapy do know this. The stages of change is, if you're in pre-contemplation, you're just saying to yourself, well, everybody's saying I have a problem, but I don't believe it. They have a problem for saying that I have a problem. The contemplation stage is, I think I'm having a problem. I think I have a problem, but you know what? I'll get around to it later. And then when you start preparing yourself for recovery, doesn't mean that you've made any action steps to it yet, but you said, okay, I need to get some help. Let me get some phone numbers here. Let me get some therapist numbers. You haven't made the call yet, but when you make that call, when you actually get off that seat and talk to somebody, meet with somebody about what is going on with you. You find out that you're not alone. And hopefully you'll get into the working stages of the stages of change where you're actually doing the work and you're working a positive program of recovery. And just remember, it takes time. So if we can just get through step number one, admitting that we have a problem and that our lives have become unmanageable. If your life's unmanageable and you think you have a problem, there you go. That's all you need.
Mike, you asked at the beginning of this, why do people struggle with the 12 steps and actually taking accountability and going to a 12-step meeting? One of the first things that came into my mind as you were talking about, the stages of changes, I don't want to admit that I have a problem. Admitting that I have a problem is going to open Pandora's box.
Yep.
And I'm going to see everything that's gone sideways in my life. And maybe I've done my best to put all my fingers in the dikes of this freaking dam to keep my world from imploding on me. But it's imploding nonetheless. But I refuse to ask for help. I refuse to check out the meetings. Mike, what was it you said a couple of podcasts ago about when you make a judgment on something that you know nothing about? You said something so profound about contempt prior to investigation. You nailed it. Give that man a prize.
All right.
Dive deeper, Mike. Contempt before investigation. You ask a client, you should consider going to 12 steps and getting involved in AA or whatever group. And they just press back. That's not for me.
That's not for me. Very common. Nope, I'm not going to do it. I went to one group once and I didn't like it. It doesn't work. This person did that. That person did that. This person did this. Oh, what about you? I mean, did you really try it? Or you just don't know anything about it. If I condemn it before I investigate it, it's contempt prior to investigation. I have all the tools at my fingertips to research things, right? We all do. We're all investigators now with the internet and Google and all these chat GPT and all that other stuff. So AI is everywhere and you can actually look up things now. So I would highly suggest that everybody just looks at it. Why not? You're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're doing all these things, distracting ourselves with daily things and funny things and crazy things. And why not just take 5 minutes and look it up? And if we are already making our opinion based on what others say about it, and we're not doing our own investigation, we're not really on that path to self-reflection and getting down deep. Like Jim, we always talk about, like, let's go deep on this. Let's uncover some things that we might have not have known it before. And look at this. Let's not condemn it before we investigate it. And even after we investigate it, we might turn away from it. And I know, because I went through that also, and I had no idea what the 12 steps of anything was before when I was a police officer. And when I did finally find out what they were, I felt a little stupid. I did. I felt like my life got to this point before I was able to even look and see what those steps were. And thank God I did, because that was a spiritual awakening for me. And I never looked back. I peeked back a few times and I worked on myself, but I've never looked back from my recovery. I know that I could do it. I'm going to get through this. And I did. And look at us now. We're giving it back to other people. Just simple information, simple suggestions to help your life and make life happier for you and your family members.
And build your sober support. Get your sober support wolf pack going. So you have people to call and reach out to or do things with. At some point, we'll be doing another holiday episode of HALT, Call for Backup, preparing for things and having people to attend dinners with, go do healthy recreational activities with. Call if you're just having an off day. Mike, do you remember who encouraged you to go to your first 12-step meeting? And do you remember what it was like for you when you first walked in to that meeting?
God, Jim, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, I do remember. I do remember. It was a Saturday night in 2012, January 19th, 20, January 21, 2012. And I went to stay with my brother. And this is right before I went into academy number 3, my first rehab, my first 28-day program. And I went to my brother's house, and him and his wife, they took me out because we're going to take you to a meeting. And I had no idea. I've heard about meetings before, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, whatever it was. It wasn't for me before, but they drove me to a place in LA, North Hollywood, and the place looked like, I need to go back there, but it was like what I remember it as, like a wooden clubhouse. And there was a bunch of motorcycles, a bunch of Harleys out front. It looked like a roadhouse. It looked like a biker den, basically. And I went in there, I walked in there, they took off. We'll meet you in an hour or whatever it was. I think it was an hour meeting. And I walked in there, and there was probably about 15 men. It was a stag meeting. They call a stag a men's meeting. And they're all just sort of sitting around in a circle. And, I took a seat outside the circle. I had no idea what I've never been to a meeting before. I had no idea what I was involved in, but I just knew I needed help. And I knew that these guys probably would understand. And of course, they had their Harley gear on and their leathers, and it wasn't intimidating to me. I felt very comfortable with them there, and they all seemed very sober, very intelligent, and they started the meeting. And they started talking about things I've never heard before, serenity prayers, and I've never heard before. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Never heard that before. I was sort of freaked out a little bit, and I just sat back. And I remember the leader looked at me a few times, and I didn't share. I don't remember sharing. And the meeting went, and I think I said something at the very end. Someone asked me to share. I think I said something like, "Yeah, I miss here. This is my very first meeting." And they said, "Oh, well, I'm glad you're here. Keep coming back." And that was it. That was a really great experience that I ever had been to a meeting before. And when we talk about the steps too, I had no idea what the steps were. But at that time, I had seen it before because I was in a detox beforehand. So this is where I first discovered the steps. And then I went to a meeting, and it was great. But when you talk about the steps, there's a lot of times we don't want, we might have a contempt prior investigation when we think it's a cult. We think it's an organized religion. We think someone's making a bunch of money, and they're holding these meetings and collecting their money, and we're all getting hosed for it. And that is not the case at all. And so a lot of us might have a problem with the word God or having higher power or anything that's because it was born out of the 30s, right? It was born out of religion anyway, Catholicism, that what led it up to there. So that's why I wanted to make it secular. So it's open to anybody. There's no excuse not to read this and try to follow this in your life. Admitting that, Mike, yeah, I got a problem and my life is unmanageable. Where do I go, Jim? Where do I go from here?
So, Mike, there you are. You've attended your first 12-step meeting, and you said something really amazing, really fascinating that I picked up on. That was your third academy when you went to detox.
Mm-hmm.
What were the first two? The first one was the police academy. What was the second one?
Well, the first one was my reserve academy. I went through that. So I went through a 6-month reserve academy, and then I went to a full-time academy. So every time I look back at going through that 28-day rehab, I sometimes I say academy. So I would say it's my third academy, basically. This is my academy of life, how I learned the structure of where my life can go. And I had a lucky opportunity to start all over. And it was devastating. It was surreal. It was horrible. It was embarrassing. It was shameful. I was guilty, regretful, the woulda, coulda, shouldas, addicted. So I own up to it. I was that person. I was that at the end of their first life where they built and trying to figure out what was happening at the moment and then where my life was going to in the future. And I just said, I'm starting a new life. This is my chance to restart, and it's going to be hard. And it took several years to find out what my passion is. Like, I know my passion is to be intelligently selfish, put my recovery number one in front of everything, not meaning that everything else in my life is lower in value. However, it sort of is. It sort of is, because if I put anything in front of my recovery is not one, my recovery is two. And pretty soon it's going to be three, four, five, and it's going to be at the end of my list. And I'm going to stop going to meetings. I'm going to stop doing podcasts. I'm going to stop having outside support groups, right? I'm going to stop going to therapy. Why even go to work then? Why even work with first responders if I just like put everything in front of it? I lose that connection. And I try to stay connected on the daily. I do. I really do. So it's a process, and it's just making that decision to say, okay, I'm ready to do the work. It's going to be hard. We go through hard things. We do hard things. We're trained for it anyway. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to get through it. Is it going to be tough? Yeah. Is it going to be painful? A little bit. Yeah, it's going to be a little painful, but I'll have to work on my shame. I'll have to work on my guilt. The one thing I have to do perfectly for me was not drink again, right? And I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
Or use drugs.
12 steps, secular version. We admit we have a problem and that our lives have become unmanageable. Who wants to admit that? You were talking about that earlier. And that's step one. Admitting, having the courage to admit, Mike, we're emergency responders, we're former emergency responders. Now we're in the counseling field helping emergency responders. And that's what the basis of this show, Halt and Call for Backup, is.
I had someone come up to me recently, and they got into recovery for the very first time. And they said the hardest thing that they had to do was go to their command staff and say that they have a problem. But they did it because, they knew that they did, and they didn't want to hide it anymore. That secret was so strong. They knew their life was going to be destroyed eventually. So it's huge. It might be the scariest thing you've ever done in your life, but you do it and you have a sense of freedom.
You said in so many podcasts, you're as sick as your secrets.
Damn right you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going to a 12-step meeting and actually engaging in the step work and not just buzzing through each step, but I know that the sponsee-sponsor relationship, if you're a good sponsor, you're going to have your sponsees digging into these steps.
Yep.
And as a sponsee, you're not going to leave, you're going to want to not leave any stone unturned, one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And this shouldn't, when people are listening right now, they're talking about alcohol. They're talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. We're just talking about a better design to live your life, right? Put anything else in there. You can put mental health issues. I mean, there's more than 250 subsets of the 12-step program that first started in the 1930s, and they're everywhere. It's just it's a good framework. There's other recovery programs out there. There's Refuge Recovery, there's Smart Recovery, there's Celebrate Recovery. It's held in churches. If you're a real good church goer, then that probably fit for you. But do something.
Something has become unmanageable. Is it your temperament? Are you walking around angry? Are you getting into fights? How's your relationships? How's your friendships? How's your relationship with your parents or siblings? How's your relationship with your husband and wife? It can be anything. That's why you're always going to hear me say the 12 steps are wisdom, and they are across the board for everybody. Some of the smartest clinicians I've ever worked with, myself included, went through the 12 steps. I'm a normie. And those who are in addiction know what that stands for. It's an old-fashioned term for a person who's not struggling with addiction. And I found the value of going through the step work. We'll talk about step 4 and step 9 some other time, but that's generally where people drag their feet, because you have to even get more vulnerable.
100%.
Take a look at the people you have really damaged in life. But back to step 1, Mike. What does it take for a person to get to the point where you admit you have a problem and that your lives have become unmanageable. When do we see people getting into recovery? When they've crashed and burned for the 10th, 12th, 13th time. Why not realize it before you get there or after the first one?
That's a great question, Jim. Dropping that control and just saying, I surrender. Let's do it. It's admitting that we're wrong. It's a tough thing to do, especially for first responders, but just general people, it's like, it's hard to say that. It's like a defeat, but it is not. It's opposite of that. It's a victory. You have the courage to ask for help. You put your hand out, there'll be 5 hands ready to grab you and pull you in, man. We're waiting for you. So we'll go on the next podcast. We'll talk about all the steps. We'll go through them all, and hope to hear back from you guys. Jim, want to take us home?
Y'all, when you're struggling in life, things aren't going well, take a step back, take a hard look at your life, have no fear, reach out, ask for help, be courageous, and HALT. Call for backup. Take a close look at step 1. Give it a go. What's the worst that can happen?
Don't get fooled again.